Go ahead and introduce Jeff because I've known him for a while, and that way he doesn't have to do it himself. The webinar is going to be called "The Practical First Step to Using AI: No Tech Skills Required." And I've known Jeff in the leads groups for a long time. He's been an insurance agent, had a successful agency, first as a captive agent, then as a broker, and he's also done business coaching for years. And this is his third webinar he's done on AI. And what I like
Wow.
about these is he actually has been using AI for quite a while, longer than most people that are small business owners like most of us. And he does use a practical approach. He talks about how it's helping him, and he explains it in a way that you can actually see some real tangible skills. And I personally like no skills needed. I've been dipping my toe into AI a little bit. And for instance, I've got a cousin whose 86th birthday is tomorrow. I have a card made out for him with him in his high school jersey as an 18-year-old doing a slam dunk, which he's never slam dunked in his life. But with AI, anything's possible, even when you're 86. So, Jeff, you always have something good for us, and you've got the share screen. So I'm going to turn everything over to you, and just let people know what you want as far as answering questions as you go along or at the end, whatever you want.
Sounds good. I'm going to just get my screen set up here so I get my stuff going. Hang on 1 second. There we go. Have you
Well,
got
that's
my
good.
screen there?
We do.
Awesome. I did it right. First time, every time, right? So, as Lynn said, and thank you, Lynn, for the nice introduction. Nicest you've ever talked about me. That's a good.
Well, when you're not around, I'm nice to you.
there,
It's just
there
when
you
face to
go.
face, I make the crack. So,
There you go. I appreciate that. I really do. A few weeks ago, I talked to a group, and maybe some of you were there, about AI and the first steps and how to make it easier. My journey with AI started about 2.5 years ago, right after ChatGPT came out. And one of my members in one of my groups introduced me to AI. And he's no longer a member, but he's a guy who's really drugged me into it, and it's been an obsession. I can only say that at this point. So the secret today for me is to slow down and to not make this too complicated. I will make this something that everybody understands. So if I get to doing something that's out of control, tell me. That's the only way I'm going to know, is if I'm up here when I should be down here. So uh, I've been using AI every day for over a year now, and quite a bit before that. But I've been doing a number of different things, including a whole new business that's based on AI. So uh, this is, to me, exciting, and therefore I have to watch where I'm at. So today, what I really want to do is to come back to that level and say, hey, most of us probably haven't used AI much, and how we've probably used it might have been as Google. We may have said, okay, AI, what's a good way to solve this thing? And we get one answer and we shut it off and we move on. And that's pretty normal. It's a normal way to start. They'd say 95% of the people that use AI, that's the way they use it. So we're going to try to get to that point and then say, this is a first step. So to me, we want to find something that, as business owners, whether we're solopreneurs or we have a small team, we want to have something that will give you back some time. AI should not be something that takes your time. It should be something that actually helps you. And that's my goal today. It's to give you back a little exercise that we'll be going through that will give you back I don't know, a few minutes, maybe an hour. And that's where we want to go. So here's the things that people are talking about right now when it comes to AI is they're hearing that robots are taking everybody's jobs. Anybody heard that one?
oh
Like
yeah,
Everybody hears that, right?
Yeah.
There's hundreds of tools. It's almost impossible to learn it. There's so much going on. And then a lot of times you'll hear that prompt engineering, you have to be an engineer, not just somebody that writes stuff. And then there's constant change, those new features every week. So instead of those things today, we're going to try to focus on a blank page helper, something that can help you make a rough draft and a thinking partner, and then a way to start a little faster. So you don't have to go from ground zero. Maybe you can be at ground 2 or 3, and that's our goal. So at those, there we go. So AI does not need to replace judgment to be valuable. I think that's another thing everybody says is if I use AI, it's going to take away my personality. It's going to take away my individuality, and it's not going to be good. It's going to sound like somebody else. That's true if you copy and paste what it gives you without thinking. So I would suggest that you use AI as your first draft. And then that last 20% that you would, use your voice. You keep your voice, you keep your judgment. If it says something that you don't agree with, don't use what it says. That's rule number one. Don't let it replace you. And then you want to keep the final decision always to yourself. Don't just give up and say, I'm going to just copy paste, use this, whatever. Except for Lynn and his 86-year-old uncle there, he's going to be able to have that slam dunk that never really happened. I don't
Yes. Yeah.
know. So, what I am suggesting here is that you start with one thing, one repetitive task that you can use to help you take back some time. So, the first question or the first thought is it needs to be the same thing. You do it the same way every time. And I'll have some examples here in a minute of that, what I think those things are, for me anyway. And then does it take time? This is something that if we're going to use, and it takes us 5 minutes to use it, if it doesn't save us 5 minutes, there's really no reason to use it, right? Kind of silly to spend an hour doing something that would have taken 5 minutes. So we don't want to do that. And then, especially if it's something you dread doing. And again, I've got a couple ideas here that will show you what I think of some of those ideas. But if you answer yes to 2 or more of those, then you've got a task that you could use AI to start helping you with. Now let's talk about what a good fit might be. A good fit might be follow-up emails. I know myself, I get back from a meeting, I've met somebody, and I'm in a hurry always, it seems like. It's being retired, you're always in a hurry. And the problem is that I forget sometimes to do those follow-up emails. So that's a good one for me. A meeting recap. If you've had a meeting with a client or with somebody that was important, a one-on-one meeting with somebody met at networking, recap that meeting and send them a quick thank you note. Again, that's something that probably doesn't get done as often as it should or as quickly as it should, for sure. And then, if you're looking for something and you want to have some help figuring out the best way to do it, let's say you've got several options and you want to review those responses, AI can help you do that very quickly and save you time. And then first drafts of emails, or I use it a lot in drafting websites and, all kinds of things that you're going to be writing and have it write that first draft so you don't have to. The hardest thing for me is that first sentence, right? Or even the headline. What am I going to write? So you can talk to AI and just tell it what you're thinking and have it write that first draft. some things that you might want to look at down the road, but not first thing. So don't do these first. Might be legal or tax advice. Certainly capable of doing that, but not something that you want to use it for right away before you understand how to use it. And then final financial decisions, you might have it help you, with a spreadsheet or something like that, but you don't want to use it as your final answer. You want to leave that to your own thinking. And then anytime if you're into any sensitive situation, I put HR here just because we all can get in trouble over that one pretty easy. If we have somebody we work with or for, or they work for us, got to be careful. Don't put stuff in there you shouldn't. And then anything, anytime that you don't review it, don't trust it. AI is good, but it's not perfect. If you read all the disclaimers on any AI system, it says we're not perfect, and we make mistakes. So just keep that in the back of your mind. So some ideas for depending on what kind of a business you might be in, but some ideas of things that you might look at in a service type business, follow up emails, proposals, project recaps. If you were in a retail environment, maybe social post, review responses, staff updates. And I don't mean HR type stuff. I mean more like telling your staff what's going on today, who's doing what and what the special is, that sort of thing. And then professional services. I was at the doctor last week and he asked me right up front. Well, it took him a couple of minutes to ask me, but he asked me up front. He said, "Do you mind if my note taker takes notes? Because that way I don't have to spend the whole time sitting in front of the computer doing this. I can talk to you." And I said, "Well, that's actually a good idea." So we're seeing more and more of that already, where he can summarize what we talked about more easily. And that's kind of a interesting thing by itself, probably. And then as a coach or a consultant type person, content repurposing. Sometimes you'll write an article or might do a post of some sort and you want to repurpose it for maybe LinkedIn and Facebook and who knows, maybe X. You want to use the same material, but you want it to condense or help you condense it down to the right size. LinkedIn today, they tell me that
Bob,
1,200.
hi. My name's Bob. I'm trying to take my first step into AI.
Okay, Bob. The the first the content repurposing 1,200 words for LinkedIn these days is the right size for an article. Facebook more like 400, 500, and LinkedIn more like 600 or 700. So you start looking at all these different things that are different sizes. You want to use that same material and just say, "Hey, here's my article I wrote. Cut it down, my blog post that I wrote, cut it down to a perfect sized LinkedIn post or a perfect sized uh, Facebook post." So it's real good that way. And it helps you that way really easily. And then in the trades, I was talking to a friend the other day who's actually using it to estimate painting. He can use AI to estimate painting in a house. How many square feet is the house? How many rooms do you have? He can come up based on just a few things. About how much it's going to cost to paint a house. And that's something he said used to take him hours. You have to go out and measure. And today he can say, here it is. How many square feet do I have? How many square inches of paint do I need to cover up the dents in the wall? No, that's not what they do.
Jeff, I knew a realtor who was using it to do the descriptions for the real estate ads. He's doing it for a large firm, and he stayed employed longer than most of the other realtors because he figured out AI was faster and better than he was. And they did double check it.
It's exactly the thing you got to worry about with that. And I've seen a lot of realtors do that is that you want to make sure it's right.
Yeah, exactly.
So what they'll take lots of times is the information off the county website
Right.
and, And I know the house, it's 2 doors down from me here on Saturday. They had an open house and I went down there. It's identical house to my house. So I know it pretty well. And I said, you're advertising as an 1,800 square foot house with 2 stories. What happened to the basement? And the realtor looked at me and said, what do you mean? It's on the county website. It says it's 1,824 square feet. I said, you're forgetting the 1,200 square feet downstairs.
Yeah.
And that's the way the county had it written up. So that's all he could pull when he did
Wow.
that. He did change it. So that was good. And then in nonprofits or community organizations, I think the big one there is obviously donor follow-up and even getting information out to volunteers that, we're going to do this on this day and you can have AI help you write that and keep track of it so you know what you're doing. Here's kind of a quick exercise that you can use. And by the way, I'm going to make these slides available to anybody that wants them at the end, but I've got a worksheet too that I'm going to drop in here at some point that will get you through the exercise we're going to do. So you don't have to write it all down right now. But these are the kind of things I would write down as first things you might want to look at doing with AI. And that is, I write this often. So in my example today, it's going to be a meeting follow-up. I had a customer meeting the other day, and I'm going to show you what I did with that. So that follow-up is something that sometimes I put off. I might have a meeting at 10 o'clock this morning, and by the time I get back to it after another meeting and it's 7 o'clock at night all of a sudden, and I haven't written it yet. So I want something I can use, a template that I can use to do that more quickly. So something like that you do regularly, or a summary. And I'm going to show you how to do a summary today, which I think is it saves a lot of time. And then I explain this often. So this probably more towards work than some of the others. But if you have common questions that people ask you all the time, and you find yourself writing the same thing in email, this is how we work, this is how we do it, and you're rewriting it 50 times because it doesn't sound quite right for that application. Maybe Lynn's talking to a restaurant owner about payment processing versus a food vendor out on the street. You'd want that a little bit different. You wouldn't want it to be exactly the same. So that's a great place to use AI too. So this first step that I'm going to talk about today is just got four pieces to it. Keep it uncomplicated, right? Mm-hmm. The first one is to paste some rough notes. So most of us will write down something when we're talking to another person. We'll write down 5 or 6 or 10 things as they're talking. I like going back to I take the lead networking sheet, where I ask people questions. I can pull them right off that networking sheet and say, oh, this is what they do. This is where we met. This is the time we met. And I can use those as my rough notes. Works out really nice for a follow-up meeting. And then I'm going to ask AI for a draft. Not a final product, but just a draft of how I could use it, as an email or as a letter or however we're going to send it. And then I'm going to go and look at it. I'm going to read it and I'm going to edit it. And I can do that with AI, or I can do that with my own voice, change some words, change the sentence structure. The thing you're going to find with AI is the more you use it, the more it knows you. Mm-hmm. And as it knows you, it's going to know your voice. I always suggest you talk to AI because it really does know your voice. And if you use, like ChatGPT and you talk to it, it understands the way you speak. It puts the punctuations in right. And eventually it's going to sound better than you sound. Well, okay. Just my thought. And then finally, you're either going to send it or save it, depending what you're doing with it, and use that draft that we made. So This is a real situation that I had the other day in my coaching business. I had a woman call me and we set up a meeting and we talked for, I don't know, half hour, 45 minutes probably. And I'd made some notes on a yellow pad that was sitting on my desk. And I took that and I typed it in so I'd have it so I could use it a little easier. And her name, what she does, her problem. She's losing clients after 3 to 4 months. She's interested in my program, which is called the Accelerator program. She has 6 clients now, and she needs or wants 12 to make her business go the way she wants it to go. The budget that we talked about, she thought was okay for what it would cost, but she needed to check with her partner. Typical put you off signal, right?
Mhm.
And then, we agreed that I'd follow up with her on Friday after she talked to her partner. And then I asked a question that I always ask people when I'm doing coaching. Have you ever worked with a coach before? And, I always ask that question because I kind of want to know. And she had, and she wasn't real impressed with that. So that gives me a kind of a point to come from, right? So this prompt you're going to get in your cheat sheet, so you don't have to write it down right now. But this is what I use. And it basically just says, I just got off a discovery call. Here are my rough notes. And I take those notes and just paste them in there. And then I want AI to write a warm, professional follow-up email under 150 words. I don't want to write a book. And I want to reference something specific. And I want to end with a clear next step. So, what are the steps I would do to do that? I would start out by going, I'm going to use ChatGPT. I'm not doing this live per se on the internet because I've been having slow internet. They're working outside my house. So
Yeah.
I'm smart. I took pictures of it. So I go into ChatGPT. You can use Claude, you can use Grok, you can use Gemini. Any of those have free ability to it. You don't have to go pay for it to start your first project, but you can go and use their free level and you'll get the same type of response that you can use. So I go into Chat GPT. I'm going to take and I'm going to type that exact prompt that we just talked about in there. And there it is. I pasted it in there. And I'm saying she's a marketing agency, a boutique marketing agency, losing clients. Same thing. Okay. So I just had on the screen. And then I'm going to press the little arrow and it's going to think for a minute. Okay, it took a couple seconds. That's quicker than I could write it. I spent more time typing it than 2 seconds. But it's going to come back and there's a little subject line. Said, great speaking with you. And then wrote a nice little email. Sounds pretty good. Great speaking with you today. I appreciate hearing more about your boutique agency and specific challenges. This is exactly the kind of retention and growth issue the accelerator is built to help solve. Sounds pretty good. I didn't think it sounded too bad. I mean, I didn't like a couple things. It didn't seem personal enough. And I missed putting her company name in, which normally when I'm talking to somebody about their business, I want to refer to that because I think it, helps them. They like to hear their name and the name of their business. So anyway, it sounded pretty good, but I said, okay, I'm going to have it do a little refurbish of this. And I said, I forgot to put the business name in, replace the words boutique agency with S&J custom marketing and keep the professional tone, but make it a little more personal. So this is going to be my second draft and it's going to sound a little better, I think. It was great speaking with you today. I appreciate learning more about S&J custom marketing and the challenges you're running into after customers dropping off 3 to 4 months. That kind of pattern can be frustrating, especially when you're doing good work and trying to build something more stable. I think that's a lot better.
Mhm.
entry to the situation here. It sounds like you have a strong foundation with 6 clients now, and a clear goal of growing to 12 without adding more stress or guesswork. I also understand wanting to talk it through with your partner, especially having tried another coach before. The next best step, so we want to have a clear action plan here. Next best step is to review it together, and then we can reconnect Friday to answer any questions and decide whether the accelerator is the right fit. I obviously ChatGPT knows me pretty well. That's something I would write. I don't have to change a whole lot there. I probably wouldn't change much of anything, to be honest about it. But that's something, I took something from a rough set of notes in a matter of a few minutes, probably 5 minutes the first time and less than that the second time I did it. And I've got a foundation there that I can use for an email that I probably would have dreaded writing. And that's the first step. I would suggest something like that. It may not be that exact thing you want to do, but come up with an idea, something that you want to do that will help you. Now, what I would do with that is exactly what I did on this little demo, is I took that prompt and I copied it and I pasted it into a document. And now every time I want to write a follow-up email, I take that prompt that I started with and I use that start with and then, paste my notes like you saw there. Mm-hmm. That way I don't have to redo it every time. And it saves me 3 or 4 minutes, maybe longer, so I don't have to redo it. So I think this is prompting. I don't know that we hear as much about as we used to. But we used to hear that you have to be a prompt engineer to make AI work. It's really not something you have to know exactly. What's happened with AI since ChatGPT first came out, and they were the first one most of us used, is that you can now talk to them, mm-hmm. and they understand English language. And because of that, it's actually coding is at that point too today. But mm-hmm. when you get into this, you can just talk to it. You don't have to have a special word. You don't have to type a special way. You don't have to do anything really special. You just have a format that you want to use. And I would say that, you want to just come up with ideas of who is this for and what happened. In the case we just did, I had a meeting with this woman, talked about her business. And then I had a task. What do I want AI to create? I had an email under 150 words that was warm and personal. And then finally I had some boundaries. I set that in there, right? It said I want it warm, personal, I want it to be less than 150 words, and I wanted to make sure we get the next step in there. You ever done that? You write an email and you realize I didn't tell them what I wanted to do next.
Yeah.
It happens. It's not that uncommon. But write that warm follow-up email under 150 words, use plain language, and you can talk to it. And, a number of these you can talk to now. And when you do that, it starts to understand the way you talk, the way you think, the kind of words you use, and it starts to copy you. Pretty cool. Okay, so there's the recommendations, kind of just what I said probably, but start with plain English prompts. Don't try to figure out what you got to write. Turn these notes into a professional follow-up email. Summarize this meeting into decisions, open questions, and next steps. If you're going to go to a meeting and you have to summarize it, that's a great way to do it. And then rewrite this message. This is my mouse. There we go. Rewrite this message so it sounds warm, clear, and concise. I have a bad habit now. Tell you my secret. I wake up at like 3 o'clock in the morning and I can't sleep because I'm thinking about something. In the old days, I used to put a notepad next to my bed and a flashlight when I was married because my wife hated the light. But now I just turn on the light. But I'd write stuff down in the notebook. Then I'd close the notebook, go back to sleep. And in the morning, I'd forget what I wrote. So I'd go look in the notebook so I could remember. And that helped. But now what I do is I pull out my phone, sitting there on the charger, and I go, hey, this is what I'm thinking about. In the morning when I wake up, can you help me figure this out? And lots of times, ChatGPT will have it all done.
Wow.
And I'll say I'm thinking about doing the slideshow for a presentation I'm making. Can you make some basic slides? And they're done. But that's not first step. I don't want to. I'm getting off the track, so don't let me do that. But the other thing you can do to add a little bit more, we could have kept going with that example, right? And do 2 or 3 versions of it, and ask for it to be more friendly, or maybe say make it direct and professional might be a comment. Make this more direct and more professional, or make it more polished,
Mhm.
and it will move some of the words in and out of there that make it sound a little better. And then something I love to do is before you write this, ask me 5 questions about it. And that way, especially if I'm talking to AI, it starts to understand what I'm thinking rather than what I'm writing.
Mhm.
That really gives the AI some help to understand exactly what you want. Okay. So we won't make you do this because you'll have to leave. You'll have to leave here. That's what happens when you do something you're thinking too much. Uh, but when you write down the things on that little worksheet, and again, I'll send you all this. When you write that down, write those 3 things and pick one and use it. And then write 3 rough notes about it. Let's say it's a follow-up meeting, one-on-one meeting that I had with one of my uh, group members after an I take the lead meeting.
Mhm.
And I just want to, I remember, what they do. We talked about, today, I met a guest today, what he does. And we talked about who his ideal client was. And by the time I left, I had a list in my head of 3 people I can connect him with. So I'm going to write down those 3 people's names and say, connect with those 3 people. And that's a great start for a first thing. And then use the prompt from that slide before to just say, write a message, write a note, an email, a letter, whatever it is you're going to write to this person. And here's some notes, right? And that way you've got a great first step. And then make sure you read it and either mark it up and, type it in there, or tell AI, I don't like the way this sounds. It's too formal, or it's not formal enough, or I want it to be more personal, want it to be warmer. All those things you can just say, I want it to do this. The cool thing about AI is if you start at the end, it'll help you start.
Mhm.
So you say, I want a warm, friendly email, it'll help you get there. And I think that's one of the really nice things about it. So the final version that you send, you should have some thoughts about it before you send it, right? And you do this if you're doing it in your head too. Does this sound like me? If you're sending something and it sounds like Lynn and not Jeff, that's not a
Mhm.
good thing, right?
Mhm.
Or
Right.
vice versa. You want it to sound like you. If it doesn't, change it. You want it to be the truth. Sometimes AI, especially not as much as it used to, sometimes it will hallucinate and it will tell you things that aren't true. So anytime it says something, I remember a quick story. I'll be really quick. There's a new subdivision. It was going to be a subdivision. Now it's a big apartment complex going in behind my house here. And when they started that, I said, I went into Chat GPT. I said, how do I fight this? And it came out with this great big, this is another example of, the city trying to overtake and change zoning and do all this stuff. And it came up with this story out of a supposed news article, and it printed it out for me. And it said, look at, I can't remember the homeowners group, but they sued the city and won, is what it told me. There was no such subdivision, no such development. And here I am getting all excited about this, going, man, I didn't have anything other than a story. But make sure everything that's in there is true. That's really, you can check now. One of the things I do is I use Perplexity, which is kind of a fact checker AI. And you can put stuff in there if you have a question, was the War of 1812 in 1812? I mean, it'll tell you, oh yeah, it was in 1812. But you want to have something check it, whether it's you or another source, check to make sure it's correct. You don't want to put out bad stuff. And then, always think about how it's going to land with somebody. One of those 3 o'clock in the morning emails that I wrote the other day was pretty emotional, because it was not a good situation. And had I have sent that the way I wrote it, I'd still be sorry for doing it. Mm-hmm. But using AI, I said, hey, I want to maintain this business relationship. I want to maintain this friendship. How would you change this? And it did a pretty good job. Or I'm still talking to the person, so that's a good thing. And then always, and I think I mentioned that before, what's the next step? If you're going to have another meeting, or if you're going to get together, or whatever it might be, you want to have the next step, because if you forget that, you kind of forgot the important part of the whole meeting to start with, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so use AI where a mistake is easy to catch before it matters. Don't do these things. Don't paste sensitive information in there unless you have the appropriate tools to do that. No personal information. Name's probably fine, but I wouldn't use their address. I wouldn't put in their birth date, or what would you want the world to know about you? Right. If you don't feel comfortable with it, don't put it in there. And then again, don't trust any specific facts unless you check on them. And don't send any text to AI without reading it, because especially if you're talking to it, sometimes your voice translation doesn't go right, and it says, you may say do, and it says doesn't, or did, and it says never. You want to make sure that what's being sent is correct, because that's important. And then never let it pretend to be you. I see a lot of that right now. A lot of people that are using AI to respond to things, like especially on LinkedIn. And that's not. I don't think that's appropriate. I mean, you can do it if you want, but I don't think it's appropriate. Mm-hmm. I think you want to answer your own stuff. So, mm-hmm. Just me. My little dots. So the steps, I've been using AI now quite a while. About a year ago, I did a voice coaching bot called Coach Jeff. And Coach Jeff, there he is. Well, Coach Jeff, the bot, had a beta test. And the beta test was really interesting. Becky was part of it. She's gone now. But Becky was part of that group. And Coach Jeff said things and did some things sometimes that it shouldn't have. But I noticed that people were putting a lot of sensitive information in there. And it really, it bothered me, because I wouldn't trust people with all the stuff they put in there. And so you want to watch that. It is safe, But remember that that sensitive material is now in the ether. It's out there. Use general descriptions. My friend brother-in-law's cousin is buying this land, and yeah, you get what I'm saying. You don't want to say, I'm trying to buy this piece of property behind me so they don't build an apartment house, because
Right.
that doesn't work. My friend's brother's cousin's buying it. Yeah, be careful. Use general descriptions. Is it really free? There are free tiers of at least those four major AIs, and you don't have to pay a bunch of money, $20 a month or $25 a month, to get in and try it out, see how it works. There's advanced features in all of them that if you do join and pay the money, that you get more context, you get more ability to do more things and tools, but you can start out without it. So that's, don't be scared of it. I guess that's the biggest thing. I've got a lot of older friends, they're older than me, which means they're really old, but they're afraid to even use it,
Yeah.
and I think just being able to go in and use it and try something, that's really kind of cool. And it keeps your mind going. If it sounds fake, don't send it. I mean, edit it, change it. This is your first draft.
Yeah.
It's you can always change stuff, and it's not final until you actually send it, right? And what do you type? Tell it what you need. I need an email. I need for this purpose, and that's how I want to write it. You don't have to tell it what to write. Just tell it,
Mhm.
this is what I need, and it'll help you write it. They'll ask you questions if you tell it to. I always do that. If you have questions, let me know, or ask me any questions that will help you write it better. That's probably my favorite little prompt I use.
Jeff, an example of an insurance agent in one of my groups, I'm not sure which model he's using, but we were talking about the grid introductions and the Maximus speech. I'm Maximus did this where he's telling who he is.
Yeah.
He really liked that. I was talking about it in a talk I gave. So he asked ChatGPT or whoever it is, said, introduce me, make an elevator speech, but in the fashion of Maximus introducing himself. And they came up with a really fun one for him.
Really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. In my groups, I took Ronnie Noyce's elevator pitch worksheet that she has that we used for years, and I take the lead.
Right. Uh-huh.
Took that and I made a GPT and Chat GPT. Everybody's been playing with it the last few weeks.
Yeah.
And that's kind of fun because it gives you that format. And I changed a few things in it to make it more fun. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of cool tools out there to use, and
Yeah.
real simple, real fun. So again, you don't have to need a perfect tool. You might want to try some, but the major ones are Chat GPT. And my take on it is it's a great general purpose place just to start. Claude is probably right now the strongest writing tool. I've got a copywriting one I use for advertising, that sort of stuff that's stronger for that, but it's a specialized tool. And then Gemini, Copilot, and I put Grok in the other one. Those are all they're good, but you can use them and they're going to do stuff. If that's your free one, Gemini is probably pretty good right now. It seems like their new one that came out 2 weeks ago. But that's a good way to start. And I just pick one. Don't try to do all 5, 6, 12, 50, 100, whatever it is, tools. Just pick one and try it. Don't get hung up on it. I think it's just a matter of trying and seeing what happens. So the whole idea for me is that if you can spend 5 minutes doing a 20-minute task, it's been worthwhile. You gain back 15 minutes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're spending 20 minutes after each meeting or after each phone call or whatever it is that you do, writing and trying to figure out what to write and editing and everything else. If you can do that in 5 minutes, that's a good first start. You're going to save some time. Do that repeatedly over a week. And really, the process we talked about here has been just take your rough notes, have AI write a first draft, you edit it, put it in your voice, make it sound like you, and then save it. And if it works and it's something you'd use again, my little follow up after the meeting, I saved and I use it I have a sheet of AI prompts that I use for different things. So I just copy and paste. And that saves me time because I don't have to say or write it again. It's just a matter of copy paste. And that makes it pretty easy. If you can save 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes every day, that means you get to go home earlier, right? Oh, if you're already home, I guess it doesn't matter. But it gives you more time to do something else, have some fun.
Well, Jeff, I used it yesterday. I did a prompt. So I'm looking at having to replace my AC and furnace. And I've got certain parameters of types of businesses I like to work with.
Right.
So I said, using these parameters in the Portland metro area, give them the parameters. Who would you recommend? It gave me a top 3, a next 3, and then also suggested the best equipment to use as far as buying it. And I thought, and a couple of these companies I was aware of because I've been looking into it on my own. I said, I just wonder what I'd get on that. And the results were so fast because there's dozens and dozens of HVAC companies around here, all different sizes.
There are.
And I was real impressed with the list it gave me and more feedback than I asked for, which was really helpful.
So we're moving from, this is my whole new thing that I'm doing, but we're moving from getting a list of 10 top businesses. We're moving from that to recommendations.
Yeah.
And what you got was recommendations.
Yeah.
And,
yep.
and that's what's happening. And that's the future. And that's a whole new thing for business to understand how to do that. But anybody has a question on that, I'm happy to talk at length because I've been working on that project for a while. Here's what I'd suggest for your beginning here, so you don't get sideways. Is just pick up first week, this coming week, the rest of this week, whatever the case might be. Just say I'm going to use AI for one follow-up email and use it. Again, we'll give you that cheat sheet. And then week 2, if that worked and you're happy with it, come up with that better prompt. You can use AI to prompt AI. You can say, okay, AI came up with this prompt to write an email, make it better. And it will. And then makes it pretty simple. And then maybe the third week, if you've never used any of this, you've used it now a few times to write an email or write a follow-up from one of your meetings or many of your meetings, maybe at that point. What are 3 other things you could use it for that would save you time? And number one thing I look at is it's not a toy. It is a toy to a lot of people, but it's a way to save some time because time is money and we only get so much time. So they tell me. I guess that's true of all of us. But if you can start saving 3 or 4 hours a week using these types of things, it's going to take you a little while to do it probably. But I would say in a couple of months, if you're saving 3 to 4 hours a week, that's realistic. And it's also something that's going to help you. There's a reason to do it. You say it's going to save me 15 minutes, big deal, Jeff, go away. You say it's going to save me 3 hours a week in 2 months if I practice with it a little bit, then maybe it's worthwhile. So that's the reason I'd use it. So, pick one task on Monday, collect a real example. Just say you're going to write a follow-up email this week to one of your clients. Collect an example, what those notes would be, and then try out a prompt, and then edit it and reuse it. You don't have to do it all at one time. I guess that's what I was trying to do with this little flow chart here. This doesn't have to be 5 minutes. This can be, over a few days to get comfortable with it. And then if you liked it, decide you like it, repeat it, revise it, or if it didn't work out, don't do it again. It's not right for everything. And it's probably not right for everybody. But I think having a basic idea here will help. And, what we want to do is save that 5 to 10 minutes on a task. We want to have the quality by the time it's done as good or better than you would have done. I think that's kind of cool when you get done and you go, that sounds better than I would have written. And then, make your stress go down, not up. First time you do this, it might make your stress go up. But as you get more used to it, your stress will go down. And that's what we want. Happier, healthier, wealthier, right? And then once it works, turn it into a little reusable system. Save the prompt. Just write, copy and paste it into a document. I use Google Docs or Word or whatever. And then, save a sample set of rough note. So if you say, if I'm going to a meeting and a follow-up meeting for I Take the Lead, I use that sheet. Or if you're making notes when you're talking to somebody, you always write down certain things, what their name is, the day we're meeting on, what we're talking about, what they do, what their ideal networking partner would be, the number of things you can use. But just kind of turn that into a regular thing so you can copy and paste more easily. And then just make sure it's right. I have one more thing I wanted to show you here. So let me, you can use plain English. You don't have to be technical. You can always edit it. You will have time if it'll save you time. There's the kind of what we just talked about. But here's something I wanted to, this is the biggest time stealer for me. I'll get something from a company or for somebody that says, this is really worthwhile. Look at this video. And the video turns out it's an hour and a half. It's like the replay of this webinar, right? When you get that replay, try it with that. But, just something along these lines. Now you've got to use Google or you got to use ChatGPT to do this because Claude and some Grok can do it too. But Claude in particular can't search the web. It's not capable of doing that right now. But what you do is just come up with a prompt like this. And again, this will be on that sheet. And you just take it and you go, this looks like a really useful video. I don't have time to watch the whole thing unless it's really good. I'll make time. Summarize the video, give me important details, and list any sections that I should go watch. I don't want to watch the whole thing, but I'll watch 5-10 minutes. And paste the video. Go to YouTube, paste the video in there, and then you push the button, and it's going to come back with something like this. And, YouTube video, how to get ahead of 99% of people with AI. Just happened to be the video I'm going to give you that link too, by the way. It's a good one. But it comes up with all these things. It tells me the sections to watch. Go to 43 seconds into it. There's a section that's how to create a master prompt, which is a great way. Once you get a little bit further ahead with AI, you can do that. Then create a system prompt and create custom instructions. So, boom, boom, boom. You don't have to watch I think a video was 40 minutes. Saves you some time. Okay. So I guess my final thought, the owners who win with AI are not the ones who figured it all out. They're the ones who started with one useful task. Pick one task this week, paste some rough notes, and just give it a try. It's really all you can do. I've got a couple other things there. I had questions from somebody, but I can follow up with those later, Len. I know we're about out of time.
Okay.
Unless everybody wants to stay, I can do that too.
I like the fact that you really are making the point that it's a tool. It's not a supercomputer taking things over. It's not thinking for you. It's a tool.
Right. You can use it as a supercomputer, but I don't suggest you start that way.
You know, you were talking about information checking. I've got a neighbor who's a high school teacher, and we're asking her about AI papers. She said, actually, they're pretty easy to catch because a lot of the younger, high school age kids just think, I'll ask ChatGPT for the paper. It'll do it, and they don't check the facts at all. So it's really obvious that they've used AI because it's full of mistakes.
It's funny how that works. There's the guys who wrote the original ChatGPT program have come out with a fact checker so they can tell if it's AI written.
Right.
And I get a kick out of it. Obviously, they're going to know.
Right.
They give it to the school people.
Yeah.
And that makes a lot of sense. I have
Well,
lost my screen here. Go ahead.
I've been using ChatGPT for some research, and the people in my groups, I've told the story. I'm not afraid of it taking over my job because it gave wrong answers, and even within the same article or response, it contradicted itself. Um,
Well, just
so,
like me. Oh.
but it was just where I could go in and double checking my mind, or at least double checking the specific tax code sections. But what I've struggled with is figuring out how to really make it useful outside of that. So that's why I'm here today. I like your little system and formula there that we can kind of follow and hopefully get rid of some of those redundant tasks.
You bet. I think, always checking. That's so important. If I would have asked those questions, Lisa, I would have known they were false. I just would have, not filed my income tax for 12 years. But
There's that.
the idea of, fact checking is really important. And I think that's so true. So true. And you can teach it. That's the other thing. It takes time, but you can. I'm trying to paste this link in there for the first step cheat sheet, but it's not letting me.
You can email that to everybody, maybe, or get it to Becky and
Yeah.
she can email it to the group.
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll send the slideshow too in case anybody wants to go back through it.
Excellent.
Paula, I have like 3 more slides I made just for you.
Well, if you want to send those to me, just email them to me. That's fine.
I will.
I'd appreciate that. Thank you, Jeff.
Paula asked me some questions yesterday in our meeting that I could answer today, and guess what? We ran out of time.
Well, this was good. Thank you, everybody. Jeff, thank you for doing a great webinar. Third one, I think it's encouraging to see how much you've used it, and it's definitely easier. I know a lot more people that are jumping in, and I'm even trying it. I'm really slow at technology.
That's hard to believe.
Yeah. but it's fun. Like old teammates, birthday cards. I can have them falling out of the boat into the water. It's awesome.
How much better is it getting that, right?
Yeah. Give people a hard time. So anyway, thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Becky's going to put the recording out and send it to your emails. Probably it'll be sometime tomorrow. So you'll be able to go back through and look at points. Jeff's going to email the slides. And thanks again. We look forward to your next webinar. Jeff?
Okay, thank you.
Thanks a lot, Jeff.
And thank you, everybody, for coming.
Okay.